Hope you enjoyed and benefited yesterday, and you have enjoyed the celebrations of King's Day yesterday as well. Today, as always, we are going to have the panel with the chairman of the IREPAS committees. They will be sharing the findings of their respective committees with us first, and then I'll be directing the questions that we have gathered for them. And of course, we will be ready for your questions. Please do not hesitate to stop me anytime you like when you have a question, so that we can have an interactive session as always. You know them, but let me quickly introduce the representatives of the IREPAS committees from left to right. Mr. Jens Björkman, representing the Raw Material Suppliers Committee of IREPAS. Mr. Wilhelm Alf, representing IREPAS Traders Committee. And Mr. Alex Gordienko is representing IREPAS Producers Committee today. So, shall we start with the Raw Material Suppliers Committee, Jens?
Yes. Good morning. Here in Amsterdam, we were happy to see strong attendance from the raw material suppliers. We were in excess of 85 registered from the raw material suppliers from multiple geographies, which was good to see. So just to we see that this is an important meeting point for the industries. At the discussion table, you know, there's a lot of geopolitics to discuss, and a lot of dramatic shifts. One big, during the year, a big change has been that we see slower output from China, steel output, which has boosted sentiment elsewhere. And but March figures were at the lowest in 6 years. So big changes. Tighter margins and structural production controls had effects on the Chinese steel output. And the iron ore prices still were able to maintain a level at around $105 to $110 per ton, due to restrictions in supply and so forth. In India, we've seen strong growth in the steel sector, and that has been mainly supplied by the very strong sponge iron production in the domestic market. So that's feeding the growth of the Indian demand. We have seen some years that ferrous scrap has also been a big import source, but as of now, this past year has not seen the same sort of strong scrap demand, and of course also due to shipping costs and so forth. So domestic supply is a very strong source. In Europe, regulatory measures have seen extended protectionism with the quota systems. EU formally prolonging the quotas has seen a strong, a positive effect on intra-European demand for the raw materials, scrap and else. Anyway, we've seen a slight improvement. This is based on regulation, whereas actual growth is difficult to say, as short term might be positive, but for the longer term, there was a worry that the very high energy prices, both oil and gas products in a importing region, in fact may slow growth. And there's a lot of speculation about stagflation and so forth. USA has seen a stronger demand from domestic steel production, which has meant that the attractivity to export ferrous scrap from the USA has been slower, especially for higher grade material and such things as shredded material, which has seen the whole continent has shifted its supply directions inwards and into the USA, which has also meant that in Turkey we've seen slightly stronger pricing. The Turkish sentiment was half a year ago or more slightly on the negative end maybe, but this year has seen a very strong production and demand. Some mills having to compensate for shortfalls from semi-finished steel products from Iran, and the GCC fallout also giving an opportunity perhaps for some stronger demand, which needs to be fed by scrap, which is also why we've seen a scrap price at an annual high of around $410. Of course, also having to compensate for the additional freight costs, which has soared during this year as an effect of the higher bunker prices, an effect of the inability to ship oil through the Hormuz Sound. So at the moment, market seems to be at a point where pricing and demand is fairly strong, but longer term, it's a lot of uncertainty around energy growth and general prospects.
Thank you very much. Willy, please.
Yeah, we had also a nice discussion in our traders committee, and one of the main topic was China as usual. So one topic was the VAT matter, which according to participants still is going on despite the latest governmental regulations in January. That means that obviously still companies in China are doing so-called illegal transactions, declaring export business as domestic transactions to be able to offset the 13% VAT and then sharing the advantage again, amongst the partners. So that was obviously a critic which came up and said that this, of course, is an unfair trade practice, but that the regularity authorizations in China are having a strong eye on it, and it has to be expected that this will be corrected soon. Then we also discussed as per the findings of the participant, the crude steel production in China from 25 reduced from 960 to only 960 million, which is about 40 million tons less compared to 2024. And also the figures from January to March are giving the expectation that this will even shrink further or at maximum stays at the same level. So there is no increase being seen. The deepest drop was on rebars with a downside of 12%. The only thing which improved was the inventory of iron ore was 10% plus, which is a strategic stock building in China. For the EU, we had a lot of questions, mainly on CBAM and on the tariffs. The questions how traders have to calculate the CBAM cost not being heard at the end of the day had been answered in two ways. The one that you have to use in these days the default value to be on the very safe side. Everything below that is a potential risk for the trader or for the importer. And it was also advised that it would be good to have the producers very much involved in that procedure, so to make contract conditions like that the EPD figures which have been announced by the mill, or the figures which are announced by the mills, have to be the base of this contract, and that also the producer then is reliable for those values, so that the trader cannot take the entire risk. How this will be in the ultimate business and in the ultimate negotiations, of course, is very open for each and every party. We also discussed the quota regime, and according to what is leaked out so far, is that the drop of quotas is expected by almost 50% amongst all origins, and a quote or a duty for everything over and above that quota per quarter is to be increased by 50% instead of 25% as of 1st of July. It was heavily complained that the EU is not considering that all country-specific quotas for those to amend where countries are not delivering anything anymore for the last 24 months. So we got examples like Bosnia and Moldova for reinforcing bars, which only these two countries are representing 250,000 tons rebar quota for Europe in a year, which of course is a massive volume. And this is vanishing on top of the reduced quota. And we have even worse on the wire rod, where Switzerland and also Moldova has almost 300,000 tons of wire rod, which again hasn't been used for the last 24 months. And again, it's completely vanished, but it's not corrected, so that these numbers will be added to all other countries. So it will be a further detriment for the end users and for the buyers in Europe. The question came up if FTA, free trade agreement countries, are excluded from these safeguards. But as we have all seen, whether it was the latest agreement with Vietnam or with Mercosur or with India, steel has always been excluded and was never part of that free trade agreement. So the next question came up, how scrap is going to develop. And our general opinion was that scrap is going to be extremely strong and will be strong because of the CBAM and the tendency to go into electric arc furnace, and that the demand for scrap will certainly increase based on the CBAM requirements. On the other side, we also have to take into consideration what Jens just said, namely that if countries are starting to prevent and to put trade measurements against exports of their scrap, then of course we may have a different scenario and prices can go into a different direction. We also discussed the outlook of various markets, and notice that Latin America and America itself, the situation is normal, and in the US it's even good. The demand of public projects is on a good level. In the EU, it is more negative. The entire economy situation is not really great, I would say even bad. And the public expansions in infrastructure are drawn back, and investments are going more into defense and social aid rather than into real improvement of the not really good infrastructure, especially in Europe and in Germany. In Africa, we see more demand, but also project of new production facilities, which may sooner or later lead to another oversupply and new trade measurements, so that these countries who are now intending to put their own steel production will soon be those who are preventing imports again, so it will be a circle and a circle. Yeah, that was in a nutshell what we discussed, and I say again thank you to all participants.
Thank you very much, Willy. Next.
Yeah, at the Producers Committee, we had very good representation of people from all over the globe. We welcomed 3 new countries, Serbia, Norway, and United Kingdom. They haven't participated before. We missed our colleagues from the Middle East. Only 2 or 3 meals managed to come. Many of them were not able to come. The topics that we discussed were mainly increases in raw materials, that all raw material prices have increased and how difficult it is to pass these increases to the customers. We see economical growth in many countries is very weak. Even in the countries, developing countries, they still feel, like in Egypt, for example, they feel that 5% that they would like to have, they will not be able to achieve. We also are very concerned about the energy situation because energy prices are very volatile, and the general feeling of the producers is that the result of this conflict in the Middle East might not be very quick, and if it continues longer, we don't know exactly what will happen. So maybe situation will be back. If the conflict resolves quickly, then probably the economical situation will improve pretty quickly as well. And also we discussed different restrictions in the markets. So each country is now creating their own market protection. In Europe, CBAM, a lot of CBAM discussion. In the United Kingdom, they're introducing a new quota system, which is even more tight than the European system. So not clear exactly why they're doing it. And in the rest of Europe, we see a lot of infrastructure growth and extremely weak housing, apart from Bulgaria, where they are not yet investing in the infrastructure. They're hoping that at some point they will. And that's in general.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I understand the geopolitical situation and protectionism still have a very adverse impact on the market situation. I have taken notes about CBAM affecting all parts of the industry, all sections, and obviously the crisis in Middle East, the conflict, the results of that conflict is affecting the producer side in terms of energy costs, in terms of freight costs. It's affecting all the trading operations in raw material side and in the product side. I have also understood that it is very difficult for the producers to pass on the increase on raw material costs to clients. So, not the easiest times, but hopefully, once this conflict in Middle East is over, we can have improved circumstances, but protectionism will go on. We'll still have to fight with protectionism and CBAM, the tariffs in the EU, the CBAM implementation will still be there as the factors increasing the uncertainty in the market. So thank you very much once again, gentlemen. I will start with the questions we have gathered for the IREPAS committees. As I mentioned at the beginning of the session, please do stop me whenever you have a question so that we can try to answer with the help of the chairman of the IREPAS committees. The first question I have here is for the panel. What is the current situation regarding the trading of steelmaking raw materials and long steel products in the GCC region during this time of crisis? How have long steel exports been impacted? How significant are the additional costs to producers in the region of bringing billet and raw materials overland from Omani ports? Who wants to take it first?
Well, if you want, well, the GCC steel market is under severe disruption right now. Raw material supply chains are tight, freight costs are elevated, and many buyers and sellers are in a wait-and-see mode because of the regional conflict and shipping risks through the through the key roads. In practice, that means trading has slowed, while mills are looking more and more on short-term sourcing and opportunistic cargoes. And to bring billets, that was one of the questions, to bring billets and raw materials overload from Omani port will be around $40 of what we have measured, yeah.
So there's a lot of difficulty for our colleagues in Middle East to carry on with the operations.
Yeah, huge.
Any other comments from the panelists?
We heard yesterday, if I may, we heard yesterday from our colleagues in the Middle East that all the ports, Omani ports in the area are congested, that the UAE government is trying to develop Fujairah port or to bring cargoes because it's outside of the Hormuz Strait, but it's not designed for the general cargo and they're struggling to do it. And the other alternative is to try to work through Saudi Arabia, but they said it's impossible because of the cost availability of trucks. And so I think situation is not easy there.
Difficult times. Hopefully this conflict will be over as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So let me move on to the next question. This is for the Traders Committee. Can you comment on on trade disruptions and additional costs amid the escalation of tensions in the Middle East? In light of continuing threats around the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz, are you observing a structural shift in trade routes or sourcing strategies, or are companies still treating this as a temporary disruption?
So far temporary, but I would say the rest we have answered already in the question before. Yes. So I think it will be people are looking more for short-term sourcing and more opportunistic cargoes, and the congestion in the ports and everything is making trading extremely difficult.
Thank you very much. Let me go on with the questions. This is for the Producers Committee. Alex, how badly has the Iranian steel industry been damaged by the US-Israeli airstrikes on Khuzestan Steel and Mobarekeh Steel? What has been or will be the impact on Iran's exports of billet? Which competitors will make up the shortfall in Iranian billet supply to Southeast Asia and the Asian region?
So from the public available information, it seems that Mobarekeh and Khuzestan were quite heavily damaged. Together they represent around 10 million tons a year annual capacity. And also it was said that Khuzestan Steel would take between 6 to 12 months to repair the mill. So it seems that the damage was quite severe. That's about 25% of the production capacity in Iran. Overall, in the semi-finished products, Iran exported around 3 million tons of semi-finished products a year in 2025, and 75% of that export went to Asia. What I understand is that the surge of export from China of semi-finished products in March is a result of a disruption of Iranian trade. And China stepped in and replaced Iran as a supplier of semi-finished products. It will probably continue. And it seems that the damage has been quite substantial, from what we know from public sources. Yeah.
So as we discussed yesterday as well, China will be a significant exporter of semi-finished products in the global markets, mostly in Asian area. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question. This is for the Raw Material Suppliers Committee, Jens. The dispute between China and BHP regarding a long-term iron ore supply agreement has almost been concluded, with the sides agreeing on common questions behind closed doors. Do you believe that this will signal a fundamental shift in pricing in the spot market with more power in the hands of Chinese mills? The other part of this question is, ex-Australia premium hard coking coal prices surged above $200 per ton FOB in December last year due to supply concerns and weather-related issues. Obviously, now there are no such limitations in the market, but prices remain at around $230 per ton FOB. What do you see as the major supportive factors for coking coal prices, and do you expect these to change anytime soon?
Nice short question. So, well, the BHP...
This comes from China, by the way.
Yeah. BHP has, during a period, not shipped to China, of course, and during a period of time, no negotiations were going on, but then negotiations carried out, and the result was that there is now a long-term contract in place, and the effects on the market seem to be twofold. Both there will be a slight downward pressure on the iron ore pricing, which is logical now that there's more supply, but there's also a new way of structuring contract, it seems, with the Chinese counterparty, whereby part of the payments terms are in Chinese yuan, which was not the case previously. So it seems to be that there's more suppliers coming online to negotiate such similar contracts with the Chinese counterpart. So yes, slight negative pressure could be a logical solution, or a logical turn of events. And the coking coal, let me see here. If I just have to read what we wrote. In January there was or last year there was this natural catastrophe, and that's now out of play, which has meant a little bit more online material. But there's also limiting factors to supply, which has held back material due to some low-level strikes and a royalty scheme for payments of the export tonnage, which has limited supply because pricing is a big factor for the royalty. So the higher the price, the bigger the royalty. So there's twofold limitations on exports from Australia. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This next nice little question is for the Producers Committee. Alex. Large volumes of Chinese exports at extremely competitive prices have been exerting a profound impact on the global longs market for many years now, undercutting the prices and depressing the margins of other producers worldwide. However, in the first quarter this year, China's finished steel exports decreased by 9.9% year-on-year, mainly due to the implementation of the export license policy starting from January 2026. In addition, China's crude steel output was down by a steeper than expected 4.6% in the first quarter, while according to its 2026 government work report, China will reduce steel production capacity in an orderly manner this year. Do you expect these trends of reduced Chinese production and exports to continue throughout the current year, providing some relief to steel producers globally?
So some reduction in exports from China are on the table this year. So we've already seen, as you said, around 9.9% reduction in exports. But will they be more? It's very unlikely, because the situation in China, as we heard from the
Mr. Yuan.
Yes, yesterday, situation in China remains very, very weak in the construction sector, despite that there are some signs of slowing down in the falling construction. Construction keeps falling. So there is still excess capacity, huge excess capacity. And also my understanding is the export licenses, they are mainly like a quality control tool rather than the volume control tool. So even if overall Chinese government would have liked to reduce exports, individual mills in individual provinces, they need this export to keep going. That's one point. Another point I would like to make, which I actually do not understand in China. So we see reduced export, reduced production, but we see increasing prices for iron ore and increasing stocks of iron ore. These two things always contradict each other. And I would actually like to ask someone to explain that to me. Very hard to understand.
Thank you very much. You keep going on with my questions. This one is still on China and for the Traders Committee, really. China's semi-finished steel exports surged by 29% in the first quarter this year, with an even steeper 48% year-on-year rise recorded in March. Rumors of possible restrictions on Chinese semis exports emerged lately on April 22nd. However, inventories of semi-finished steel in China have been reported at consistently high levels. What is your forecast for Chinese billet exports in the current year? Will they continue to increase, or will they be restricted to some extent by the Chinese government? How will they impact the global billet market, and will they benefit from the crisis in the Gulf region? This has been partly answered already, but let's have the traders' comments.
Yeah.
Opinion.
Well, the comment is from my colleagues in Lugano, and they say that we would expect a strong but more controlled Chinese billet export in 2026, and elevated volumes, slow growth, and more administrative barriers. The government appears most likely to restrict and manage the trade than allow another unchecked surge. So the global billet market will probably stay under pressure from China supply, but with higher volatility, and the Gulf crisis should support export demand only where logistic and license allow cargoes to move. So that is the traders' version.
Thank you very much. Next question is still on Asian market, but this time on India. And for Raw Material Suppliers Committee. Hence, India is expected to be one of the brightest points in the global steel market in the coming years, with steel consumption projected to rise by 7.4% this year and 9.2% next year. How do you see the prospects for the flow of scrap imports into the country, especially considering that other Southeast Asian countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh are still more active in terms of scrap imports than India?
Yeah, I mentioned it previously also that India has been able to maintain a very good supply of fairly inexpensive sponge iron, domestic. And there are some mines that only have concessions for a few years that need to push out a lot of material. So some of the one of the main factors for very healthy growth in India has been a very good supply of sponge iron, and that will go on for a couple of years at least. So the necessity for imports of scrap has been reduced for the time being, at least. If shipping lanes and shipping costs become lower and more beneficial, then I would say that India is a very opportunistic destination.
Thank you. Next question is for the panel, and we move on to the EU market. As the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, transition phase progresses, many market participants still highlight uncertainty around cost calculations and reporting methodologies. What are the biggest practical challenges companies are facing today, and are these delaying commercial decisions? Looking ahead to the full implementation phase, do you expect CBAM costs to be fully passed on to buyers, or will exporters need to absorb part of the costs in order to remain competitive in the EU market? This is a big headache. Who wants to take it first? Traders or?
Well, Yeah, honestly, we expect that the majority of the CBAM costs will ultimately end up with the buyer and with the final end user, because we see already that prices are elevating, that prices are coming up, not only because of the crisis now in Iran and the energy costs, but also because of the tariffs, which are now starting to appear in 1st of July, so new quotas and the CBAM costs. So the mills have already quite a nice environment where there is room for price increases, which is also understandable. And well, the traders who are willing to do business have to calculate their costs really properly. And as I said before, you have to either use the default values to be on the safe side, or you take some risk and you have reliable partners where you know already that those numbers more or less can be reached. But again, the verification has to be done. It's not still, the rules are not 100% clear, the regulations are not clear, and so it is a burden, it is a risk. So for the time being, I would say certainly the trader is taking a certain part of the risk. The mills have to make concessions on the prices if they want to export into that area, and the customers, of course, will only take an import if it's competitive based on their judgment compared to domestic prices.
Thank you very much. That gives traders another role to play in the market.
Yeah, in fact it gives, and I mean, it's. I said it before. It's if you are a trader of a certain size, of course, it's much easier to take all these risks and to manage those risks, because CBAM, tariff quotas, and so on. It's not easy. I mean, it's really something which you have to live every day to see what is happening, what is changing, and. Well, we've seen times when you had small trading operations in Europe with 1-2 people and so on. This is really, these people are struggling, in my opinion, because the risk is really high. The risk of losing a lot of money is extremely high, and the workload is really high to control all these things. And that brings steel trade into a different phase.
Thank you very much. Alex, are the producers enjoying the period?
Well, I suppose we can just move to the next question, and I will naturally answer it. Look, it's a question. Next question is about leveling the field. Whether the CBAM will level the field for the international steel pricing. The thing is, European mills have been living with CBAM for 10 years. And so from our point of view, from the mill point of view, CBAM is leveling the cost of carbon across the countries. So the idea behind the European Union and CBAM was that to spread the carbon pricing all over the world. And actually they are achieving it. Look, Turkey introduced carbon pricing. We hear China introducing carbon pricing. India is discussing this. Many countries are now introducing carbon. That's what European Union wanted at the end of the day. So as long as the system is everywhere, and for example, you have a carbon pricing in Turkey, and then the Turkish mills can deduct it from CBAM, that's what European Union wanted all along. So that's the aim that they achieve. Price-wise, I don't think CBAM really affects the pricing. Okay, but it creates a certain base for the price in Europe, I would say. Okay, so like the minimum base that you cannot go under. And again, that's what it was designed for. So.
But still what I'm questioning is, with all these CBAM money, which is finally coming into the European cash, what is being done with that? Do you have...
It's an excellent question, and I have no idea.
Thank you.
Okay, and like in the United States, for example, I have read that United States collected $600 billion last year from the import tariffs. Where are this money? Who is handling this? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we have the microphone for Mr. Baysal. Front row, please. Do we need to turn the microphone on? Or
Is it on?
they're going to change it? Yes.
We had the same subject discussed in our Traders Committee meeting, and of course, the suggestion was the traders will be under big burden because they have to figure out what the CBAM value is and all that. But reality is, the traders have to just make their contract on the contract value or whatever the default value is, and at the end of the day, if the default value is higher, they should be able to pass that on to the mill. So there is a liability not only on the trader, but also it has to be on the mill, because the trader doesn't know what you guys are doing as far as the mills go.
Sure.
The traders can only take the value, whatever is there, for them to look at the date of their doing contract. Past that, the mill should be liable, and the trader has to pass that liability onto the mill for any change.
That's fair, to say the least. But in terms of implementation, it may give some headaches during the negotiations.
It's very difficult, first of all, to find a mill who is accepting that clause, because they will also argue with a complete uncertainty of the final risk taking on that. And then let's face it, I mean, these final numbers will come up maybe in the years after the delivery, when you finally get the bill for your CBAM. And then to run to a mill anywhere in the world to say, hey, by the way, from last year I still get 150,000 euros because your number wasn't approved by Brussels. I think this is very much unlikely.
But reality is the traders are taking enough responsibility and liability on the shipping, on the cost financing.
Yeah.
So whatever the mill does is their own business, and they should know what their CBAM value is, and they should be liable for their own CBAM value, not pass on to somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
I think it will separate the bad from the good, and we as traders, I can tell you, we are definitely having an eye on that. Which mill is supportive, which mill is open in opening the books, showing the numbers and so on and so forth, and which ones are, I have no idea, let me see, I don't know. So yeah, that is the function of the trader as well. But in all fairness, like on demurrages and everything which comes after the business, you have to have a reliable partner with you to understand and to believe that you will get your money back once you present the bill.
So, for sure.
I can add a little bit?
Please, go on.
So if I can add a little bit. So from the market sources, we hear, in reality, only 2 suppliers in flat products, not in long products, accepted their responsibility on the CBAM, and it's a Japanese supplier and Korean supplier. The rest of the mills from outside of Europe, they are not accepting responsibility on the CBAM. This is we hear from the trading sources. It may not be 100% correct. And I also would like to make a small comment about CBAM, that eventually CBAM is a medium-term disruption in the market. What do I mean? Okay, so we're now in 2026. We don't have the verifiers. We don't have the rules of the verifiers. We cannot even start verifying until 2027. The payment will come in September 2027. But we all know the efforts have been made, the preparations have been made, and comes 2027, someone will travel around the world. I mean, I would love to be that someone and have that frequent flyer card, okay, to collect all the miles. And audits will take place, and some mills will pass them. Maybe not all of them, but enough mills will pass them. What does it mean? It means that starting from September 2027, there will be mills who will have reliable data. And the traders will go to these mills and will buy from them instead of another mill. And the material will arrive with a guaranteed CBAM, and the trader will take. So this 1.5 year disruption in the market, eventually in the longer term, will be solved, okay? And the material will arrive. But it will, again, it means that every mill will have to go through all their costs, all their suppliers. They will have to verify all the data. And that's exactly what European Union wanted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to extend this any further, but I saw that CARES, SGS are willing to just go and make the inspection and come up with a value. So the mills can put the liability on them if it ends up higher than that. Just avoid putting that pressure on the traders. Really, the traders can't handle that.
Yeah.
No, I agree that it's fair to have a reliable supplier partner, but I also agree that it is not easy with everybody. Rami?
The thing is that, the traders can help also putting pressure on the EU Commission itself, because it's so simple. They are announcing that they will just announce the verifiers list by September. There will be a very long queue by that time, and your first report will be by February. And apparently, no verification body would love to take a risk, It's not their job, so just to say.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm skipping this next question. We have already discussed that. Thank you. So, the following question is for traders once again. Really, this time it's on the safeguard system, still in EU. With the changes to be implemented in the EU safeguard system starting from July this year, how do you expect exporters to adjust their strategies by shifting to alternative markets or changing product mix? For buyers in Europe, are quotas creating supply risks or simply leading to higher prices, and how is this influencing purchasing behavior? This is another pain point.
Yeah. Well, I think exporters will have to shift at least partly to other markets because simply the volumes are not there anymore if they are put in half again. And but it will be more and more difficult because of, as most of the countries in the world are starting and having already similar trade barriers, so it won't become easier to find really a market. And that was also one of the questions in the trader session, where the Turkish rebar and wire rod producers, for example, can still go. And we said, well, honestly, there's not that much left. Maybe Africa, but as I mentioned before, even in Africa, there are new production projects on the road. And so this will be maybe also just a short-term solution. But those markets which are completely free for trade restrictions are usually also the most competitive ones, and those where everyone can go. And then, if you are a high-cost producer, again, you are more or less closed off from this market. So, do we expect any risk for buyers in the EU to run dry? Not really, because what we all think is that the capacities we have in the EU in general for long products is far more than the current demand. It is just a matter that maybe the one or the other is running right now on lower production utilization, so that can be easily changed. And if we see, for example, in last year, one of the major German rebar producers stopped his production in Germany for almost 7 or 8 months, and it was not even noticed by the market. So, no, there is definitely nothing expected of a shortage in Europe.
I'm hearing that Turkish exporters, not Turkish exporters, but Turkish government is looking to secure some exceptions by means of some negotiations with the European Commission. Do you see any chance there, or?
I would like to see a chance there, because I think, talking as a trader, of course, I think it's more than fair. We have a trade agreement with Turkey. We have a duty agreement or trade tax agreement, not duty agreement with Turkey. So I think if we always exclude everything from a free trade agreement, in the end of the day, what is this free trade agreement means? If you exclude everything which is not suitable for you, I would hope that these discussions bring something, some relief, that at least they can keep their quotas, or at least maybe not the 50%, or anything that what could come out positively would be, in my opinion, a good sign.
Thank you very much. We have a question. Ada?
Hi, the question will be probably to Alexander. So do you think there may be a situation at some point when prices in Europe will become so high that it will be still profitable to import material, including all duties on top of quota and CBAM?
That's a very good question. And basically, we are actually getting there. So we know that in the United States, the mills have increased prices so much that it makes sense for the importers to bring material from abroad, to pay 50%, and to still import material into the United States. I would not be surprised if that in 1 year time, this situation will be similar in Europe. I would not be surprised.
Good. Until this time, so we just heard that there are very little, let's say, opportunities to reallocate this material coming from Turkey, from Asia. So I already asked yesterday Traders Committee, now Producers Committee. So do you think Turkey and Asian suppliers will have to cut production?
That I really do not know. It's very hard to say, because the market is just way too volatile, I think. Like, we don't know what is the freight. We don't know what the energy cost. We don't know if we have jet fuel to come back home, because apparently in Europe we run out. So I think it's the time will tell. So probably in Belgrade, when we meet, we'll have better understanding what needs to be done. Okay.
Good. And last question. I'm sorry, this is my job actually, to ask questions. So you also mentioned that in Europe capacities are underutilized. So imagine soon we will have less import, but will European mills be willing to increase production? Because currently, as far as I understand, not much is paid for emissions, right? Mills do not pay now in
No, we pay.
But limited amount, not for the whole production.
Because it's the phase-in stage, we're in the phase-in stage.
So if mills increase production, so they will have to pay more for their emissions. Will mills be willing, will it be profitable to do that?
I would say that the natural restriction to increase production in Europe is actually availability of raw materials. So as we know, Europe exports 6 million tons of scrap a year. 8?
Europe,
I'm not sure.
Exports maybe 19 million tons of scrap.
That's okay. Fantastic. Okay, a lot of scrap.
Yeah.
So the natural restriction is availability of raw material. If the European mills will be able to compete and secure raw material in Europe, then we can easily increase production. The production utilization is very, very low in Europe, in long products. I think in flat products it's much higher, in long it's very low.
Got it. Thank you. That's all. I can keep on, but will not.
Thank you, Nada. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to the next question. This is for the Raw Material Suppliers Committee. Jens. The global ferrous scrap market is undergoing a fundamental change. The long-standing surplus of scrap is predicted to vanish and turn into a deficit by 2030. Many countries are now treating scrap as a strategic raw material rather than a waste product. As a result, the global competition for scrap is intensifying, and this trend is expected to grow. Steel companies are already taking steps to secure their supply, such as acquiring scrap yards and investing in new recycling technologies. How do you assess the global balance of the steel scrap market in the coming years?
Yeah, this is a difficult question, but fundamentally, scrap is not in a surplus. It's always consumed. There's no mountains of scrap, but of course there's availability close to Turkey, for example, from Europe. Today, Europe is exporting maybe 19-20 million tons of ferrous scrap a year because Europe is not growing. There's limited demand. It's a modern economy. Similar to US, where the market is not growing at tremendous pace, such as in Middle East or Asia. So the demand for the raw material is needed in the areas of higher growth. Okay, now we're seeing Europe is shifting metallurgy to more EAFs, more electric arc furnaces, during the coming years as an effect of regulation, and also because there is supply availability within the European Union, and it is expected that some part of the excess ferrous scrap available in Europe today will be limited somewhat, especially for the flat producers. They will demand higher grades, low copper content material, and which is in some cases not consumed by the long producers today. So it could fit fairly well. The challenge will maybe be for the buyers in the Middle East, who are used to having Europe and USA as two very consistent suppliers. It may be that some of that supply will be limited. There is growth in scrap, in areas of growth. For example, in China, you see tremendous growth in scrap availability. You see scrap handling in India growing tremendously. So there are growth areas for ferrous scrap as well. We will not be solely dependent on Europe and US for the ferrous scrap.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question. This is for the Producers Committee. Alex, in recent years, mills have increasingly focused on flexibility of feedstock. Are steel producers today more willing to switch between scrap pig iron and DRI, HBI, depending on price spreads, or are they maintaining more stable raw material mixes? From a rebar producer's point of view, do you see either scrap or DRI, HBI as the future, or will it be a combination of both?
Yeah. Unfortunately, electric arc furnaces are not like restaurants. It's very hard for them to change the menu every day. Many rebar producers in Europe, the furnaces are built in a way that you basically cannot use anything apart from scrap. Okay, you can use part of your feedstock as HBI, but it's a typical long product mill cannot use anything but scrap. It's also a question of energy. So switching, for example, rebuilding your furnace and starting using HBI, it means you have to use a lot of energy. Energy is a big shortage in Europe, and that will not change in the future. It will remain, as challenging as now. So European mills, I don't see how they will be changing. Also taking into consideration CBAM as well in Europe. Outside of Europe, we know that the new technology and all the new mills being built are built on the DRI technology.
Particularly in the US.
Can they use more scrap? Does it make sense for them to use scrap? I'm not sure. Does it make sense for them to use more scrap? Probably. But if we see that the availability of scrap going in the next 4 or 5 years is going to be restricted in the international market, it's going down, then probably it wouldn't make sense for them. So I would say that it's a natural diversion of production methods. In Europe, it's going to be mainly scrap EAFs, and outside of Europe, in the Middle East and Northern Africa, it's going to be mainly DRI EAFs. That seems to be the case. I don't know whether you agree.
Any comments, Jens? No?
Not really.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is for traders, really. Africa. Africa has become a key destination for steel exports from countries like China, which are grappling with overcapacity. The availability of cheaper imported steel can pose a challenge to the growth of local steel production. How do you assess the growth in Africa's imports of steel products from Asia and especially from China?
Well, the medium-term outlook still points to continued import growth from Asia, led by China, unless trade barriers rise materially across African markets, as I previously said already. At the same time, some African countries are trying to build local steel capacities, which I also mentioned before. So import surge may eventually face more policy resistance. For now, though the trend is clear, Asia is supplying a growing share of African steel needs, and China is the main force behind that shift.
Thank you. This was discussed yesterday as well, so I'm moving on to the next question. This is for the Raw Material Suppliers Committee. What are the mid to long-term challenges that you envision will arise in scrap collection, and how can they be addressed? Are there specific regions in the world where scrap collection will be especially difficult?
Well, the amount of bureaucracy around recycling, that is a factor that may impose a difficulty. For example, in Europe, where we have the waste shipment regulation coming in, so what we see is a regulatory measure that will likely mean recyclers, at least larger groups, will invest in sorting facilities to upgrade material to be able to reach a more productified raw material. So you will see more of a raw material production in the recycling industries in for example, Europe. And so that will be an effect of more bureaucracy. But you could also see lower raw material prices or lower scrap prices due to restrictions, which could also mean that parts of the industry will not be interested in investing. So there's two different risks here, but very challenging to see which one will lead the way. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm moving on to the last round of questions I have here, ladies and gentlemen. Next one is for the Producers Committee. Energy costs remain an important part of steel production, especially in energy-intensive regions. As oil and gas prices remain volatile, how are producers managing cost risks, and are these costs fully reflected in steel prices?
So I would say that as a producer, of course, we would love to pass all our input costs to the buyers, but unfortunately, in a weak market that we're experiencing now, it's extremely difficult to pass all increases. And it's reflected in the mills margins, that the mills margins are under pressure. At the Producers Committee, people commented that raw material input prices, for example, and energy prices increased by X, but only part of that the mills were able to pass to the buyers. Also, it's a question of like the price of oil, availability of oil. It's starting showing in the delivery costs. We see, for example, that availability of diesel in Europe is very restricted. And so suddenly now it's becoming difficult to find trucks to deliver material. It's actually a big problem now, shortage of transportation. And the longer you go, the more difficult it becomes, because we know that the bunker prices increase so much, even comparing to the price of oil, that the freights increased much more than, for example, we could have predicted based on oil price. So it's very difficult to pass increases.
Sure. Thank you. We have a question again. Can we have the microphone to the front row, Mr. Baysal?
There are two things that to consider. Obviously, the cost of production is important, but from the trader side of it, the bunker prices went up dramatically, much more than the oil prices. In fact, proportionally higher than the oil prices. So that means the shipping prices went up and are continuing to go up. Second is when we have the product, we have to deliver, which means trucking. Trucking also uses diesel, and the diesel prices went up. So it's not only in the production side, there's also on the delivery side serious pricing. And to pass on all that to the customer is tough, but it starts with the mills. You have to increase your prices, and obviously we have to do the same. At the end, there's going to be a serious inflation in the country, all worldwide. Wait to see.
That's the inevitable result, I suppose. Thank you very much. Next question is for the traders, really, and on US. The US steel market has posted a strong performance in terms of prices since mid-2025, with local rebar prices, even after a slight correction seen earlier in April, now standing at $920 to $940 net ton, or over $1,000 metric ton. Do you believe local rebar prices have the potential to increase further, or at least remain at the current high levels, and why?
Well, the US rebar has already been supported by tight supply, higher scrap and disciplined mill output. And several market notes say mills were sold out even up to Q1 in 2026. So demand is not booming across all the end use, but infrastructure and public works are still providing a steady base and help keep the market firm. Higher freight rates, energy and labor costs also make it harder for mills to accept any lowering prices. So we are of the opinion that the prices will remain at these levels, and with what Don just mentioned, higher energy costs, gasoline costs, diesel costs, and at the end, the prices will certainly go rather higher than lower.
Until when the imports become competitive again?
Yeah, maybe, but also they have to struggle with the energy and transport costs.
Thank you very much. Next one is for the raw material suppliers, Jens. What's the current situation in the financing of trading of scrap and or other raw materials?
Yeah, so we've seen a tightness in the credit insurance availability as market prices also are inflated. It means caps on availability for tonnage, which has put a strain on the situation, and maybe you have to sort of in some cases agree on different payment terms and so forth. And we've also seen some buyers opening letter of credits, needing to sort of wait with the ability to open because limits on credit lines. So there is some tightness in the market for credit availability.
Thank you very much. The last question I have here is actually we have discussed mostly the energy prices and the predictability. Let me read the question first. With energy prices stabilizing but raw material costs remaining unpredictable, do you expect a period of lower prices, or are we heading toward another sharp correction? Let's make it rather short. what's your outlook for the market? Who wants to start? Really?
Well, yeah, with the current uncertainties in the world, with unpredictable energy prices, freight costs, trade barriers, and supply and demand corrections due to conflicts, it is really impossible to give any prediction in what direction the prices are developing. So I think it will be a job of all of us to really constantly evaluate the situation and the changes in the geopolitical situation and analyzing its impact. So it's really a very strange time we are in, and we had, as we discussed in the preparation meeting, we had lots of ups and downs. We had a lot of issues of electrodes and God knows what, all sorts of special effects, but this is a number of things which are all popping up, which makes it really difficult to predict anything.
Thank you. Any other comments, Alex?
I would just only add that it seems that it doesn't look that the energy pricing are stabilizing. It doesn't look that the conflict has finished, and it seems that the market pricing the conflict to finish in May can be very wrong. At least that's how it looks now. And if this conflict continues for another 2-3 months, the effects will be very big on all markets and on the steel market. That seems to be, from my discussions with many people at this conference, that's been the main revelation for me, that many people think that the conflict will continue much longer and the effect will be much bigger on the market.
And much severe.
Much severe.
Yes. Any comments?
I think at the moment oil prices are $110 per barrel Brent, which is not, it's a lot higher, of course, than what it was before the conflict, when it was like $50, $60.
Yes.
It's 100% higher, but it's still not a level where it's catastrophic for the markets. It could become catastrophic, of course, but it seems that markets are expecting this to be temporary, and the demand and ability to pay for scrap and steel is still there. So we see markets are performing quite okay at the moment, but that is also because we are expecting it to be temporary. I think if we start to see that demand is slowing and buying is slowing, ability to pay is removed, then I think we'll see some real challenges.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ran out of questions here. Do you have any other questions for the chairman of the IREPAS committees? We have a question, I suppose. No, you don't? We all thought you were asking for the microphone. Okay. So, no more questions. Thank you very much. Okay. So, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your comments and answers, sincere answers. And I also would like to thank you for your contributions. I also would thank all the distinguished speakers who have shared their expertise and opinions with us yesterday. Last but not the least, I have to thank our sponsors, starting with platinum sponsors İçtaş, our gold sponsor Demora, silver sponsors Belgian Scrap Terminal, the London Metal Exchange, bronze sponsors Artemet Inspection, IMAS Recycling Machinery, Climes, Hilco Industrial, Link Inspection, Mono International Limited, and Steel Ducks for their unstinting support. I also would like to thank you for your contributions, for your attendance. As always, I say, it makes this event the undisputed premium event for the long products market. Thank you very much. We all hope to see each other in Belgrade in 6 months' time. Thank you very much. Have a nice and safe trip back home. Thank you.